Ron? All right. So, all right, everybody, welcome to Cohort 13's Vertical Slice presentations. Cheer for the teams. So, this year we have 6 games that we're going to show for you today. There's things that are a little bit different for those of you that have seen this before. The teams are all self-formed this year, so there's a lot of very different team sizes. They range from 5 up to 17. And they're in order of the team sizes, so the smallest teams are presenting first and the largest team is presenting last, just for those of you who are keeping score, so you can kind of see what different team sizes are capable of doing. Each project is going to have a total of a half hour. In previous years, we've done Q&A, but we've decided to kind of let the presentations speak for themselves this year, so there's not going to be any Q&A. What we see is all we know about the projects. Afterwards, Tom, Ron, and I are going to go do a little bit of number crunching, and probably within 24 hours we should be able to turn around and tell everybody what the budgets are and see how long teams are going to be able to survive and go forward from there. So air conditioning is broken, I'm told, so we're going to keep the doors open. So there should be a break in between presentations. When one presentation ends, they'll break down, and while they're breaking down and the next team is setting up, you can go ahead and there should be 5 or 10 minutes. But if you hear people talking when you try to come back in, please be polite and use the back door. It'll be disruptive. The door will be open and it'll look like you can come in. But if someone's giving a presentation, be polite and use the back door. All right, so I'm not going to keep talking. I'm going to let the presentations speak for themselves. So I'm going to hand the mic over to Kayla, and we will see our first project.
Thank you. Hi everybody, I'm Kayla and I'm here to talk for Cardlink, and I'm really excited to share with you what we've been doing in our vertical slice. So, a quick recap. At the heart of our game, our goal is Cardlink is where you, the player, are an enchanter, and you are partnering with your summon companion. And our focus is how the enchanter treats their summon. And to tie into that focus, our theme is friendship is power. And the closer the two of you are, the more powerful you become. We want to build that bond that you see in animes like Yu-Gi-Oh! With Yugi and his Dark Magicians, and more recently, Gao Mikado and his buddies in Buddy Fight. And our target audience are for people 14 to 28 years old who watch shows like Yu-Gi-Oh!, Cardfight Vanguard, and Buddy Fight, where they see these card games come to life. So, as Rick mentioned, we are a 5-man team. We are 2 producers, 2 programmers, and 1 lone artist. So this project has been put together with blood, sweat, and tears, and for the sanity of our artists, a few asset packs. So I'm really excited to share kind of the high level of what we've accomplished in these last 2 weeks. We've optimized and refactored our code, we built a working opponent AI, and we have fully playable matches that you can continue to play after you finish. So you can start your match over once you win or lose. And in that, we've also added our sound effects for the matches. And then for production, we've worked on our background music. We've built an environment with lighting and using the asset pack that we chose for our style. Started working on the user experience and how that feels working in the vibe, getting that really fun kinetic feeling of slamming down the card you need to win the match or saving yourself and your companion from an attack that would have knocked you out. And then we also started researching into particle effects with Unity, and one of the ones we were able to accomplish has made it into our demo trailer. And then as I mentioned, we got an asset pack so we could have our environment visual style set up for you guys. So our artist could focus his time and energy on building our Wind character. And the reason we went with that is Wind and the other summons are the core of our game. How they move, how they interact with you, their personalities. And we want to focus on that and start getting that going for vertical slice. So we started with some basic textures, so we have some variations of that to test out color palettes for them, and started on the important part, their animations, how they react to things. So since we were focusing on the battle matches for now. We have some basic animations to help with player feedback on dealing damage, taking damage, and just them chilling as they're waiting for you to make your choice for the match. So I'd like you all to meet Wind. Wind is the first summon that you'll get to meet. They're a very playful, energetic character, and it was really fun working with them because they're a floating character, so you have to pay attention to how far away they are from the ground. And they're, just like the player at the beginning of the game, are new to the school and enchantments. And working with you, their first enchanter, they're excited to go and compete in the school tournaments and start learning on what it's like to be a companion for an enchanter. And it's been really exciting to try to start fleshing out this character via their animations and their art style, and trying to make them feel like a distinct character. So, as I mentioned before, we started working on some of the animations. So we have our idol. We have to keep in mind that they're floating, so that's why they have their arms flopping to keep them aloft. And we have their attack animation. And we also have their defense, so when they're taking damage. So, as I mentioned before, we decided to go with an asset pack for our visual standard. And our game takes place, to give you some background, on an alternate Earth where magic is commonplace and it's a part of everyday life. And you, the player, are a student at the Academy, which is a school for enchanters, and it's located in this Earth, the Netherlands. And our goal is to flesh out our world with design inspirations from Amsterdam. So the reason we ended up going with Europe and Amsterdam specifically is we wanted to take a sidestep for when you think of card games and animes, you think of Japan, you think of Asia. So we wanted to take a sidestep to a more Western version. And then we decided to go with Europe because of the way the school system's built and tie that into our school. And then the reason we decided to go with the Netherlands and Amsterdam is they're not hot-topic names when you think of Europe. When you think of Europe, people tend to think of France or Germany or Great Britain or Spain or Italy. So we kind of wanted to take one that we haven't really heard much about. And then another thing is, when we were doing research on Amsterdam, we saw a lot of windmills. And windmills are interesting because they can generate clean energy. They're used for milling grain into more edible substances. And in general, windmills are helpful because of wind. And our first summon is Wind, who is a very helpful, energetic person who wants to help you also get better when you're playing the game. And that's kind of some of the inspiration we want to tie into building the game and going forward. So, I also want to kind of talk about what we've learned over these last couple of months. We had to make a lot of hard decisions, especially these last 2 weeks. And one of the things we decided to do is refactor our code. And the reason we decided to do that is we wanted to build our game right. We didn't want to just keep tacking things on and hope that it stays together with duct tape and tears. But we wanted to build our game right, and we wanted to build it sturdy. And because we did go and put in all that effort of refactoring our code, our programmers are super awesome. The 3 of them are amazing. So it was done by our tech designer and our 2 programmers who put in so much time and effort. Because after we did that, I was able to see them iterate on code and added new features like it was nothing. It was amazing. And then we got to test things out and have new features added in. And then we also were able to build a deeper understanding of Perforce and Unity and how the 2 work together. How you're able to edit things via Perforce that sometimes are hard to edit in Unity, such as like if something was named incorrectly, you can go in via Perforce and fix the naming convention without breaking the rest of the project, which was really helpful. And then we also learned the pros and cons of asset packs. So pros is our artist is able to focus on things that we feel are also near and dear to our game, such as the character, while we're able to work on building the environment and help people understand where we are and what we're trying to do. Con is the asset pack you pick kind of leads where you are going design-wise with it. For example, our asset pack had a lot of outdoor assets. So in that case, we built an outdoor scene. And then also when we continue building forward, we need to make sure that the new assets we make are in tie-in with the asset pack that we're using. So moving forward, we have the game working, so the basic mechanics of playing the card game is awesome, it works. So now we want to take that and build it into a tournament system, as well as building more interactions for you and your summon. So when I say tournament, I want you to think of like the Pokemon TGC tournaments where you at the academy are competing against other students. So this would be more difficult AI. And you're building this reputation as you compete in each rank of the tournament. And we would be building a reward system and scaling the difficulty for you as you are like going up in ranking. And then also with that, the summon would be kind of keeping track of how many matches you won, how many matches you lost, and as well as how you interact with them outside of the battle. And that would tie into some of our game mechanics that I'll explain during the demo. And as I mentioned, we want to focus on player and summon interactions. So we want to refine Wind and their personality, flesh out more of their animations and how they react to things. And then building the Dormer Cafe, an area outside of the arena where you and your summon get to hang out. You would be able to do things like adjust your deck, do some motion games, and object interactions. And then to reach these goals, we would need funding only for the asset pack that we have to factor in that we're using, but for hiring contractors and moonlighters. Specifically, we would need 2D artists to help us flesh out the card art and design, as well as for other characters that you would be competing in the tournaments. Tech artists for particles, and designers to help with balancing the card game and making it even more fun than it currently is. And before I go into the demo, I'd like to give a special thanks to people who have been so awesome in helping us get to this point so far, as well as to the staff and faculty who have been giving us such awesome feedback to help us get better, and to Cohort teams who have been a wonderful area to work in and people to just talk to, and to you, the viewers, for chiming in to come watch us today. So, time to demo. So since we're a VR team, we decided to go with a video presentation of our demo. I'll be pausing it at certain points to explain a few things of the game mechanics. All right, so right here, when you start up the game, you as the player are going to be starting the first phase. So one of the benefits of going first is you gain an extra card to your hand because both players will start with 3. And then you can decide if you want to spend your action points to either continue drawing cards or save them for your opponent's first attack phase. As the first player, you do not get to attack your opponent. And as you see over here, I'll wait till we get an actual closer video of the cards. So we have 3 circles, red, blue, and purple. Red allows you to play a card face up for 1 action point, while blue allows you to play it face down for 2, and the purple is a discard. So that's your deck. It takes 2 points to draw a card, and as you see, he can't play because he's the first player of the turn. So over there on the left is our player scoreboard. So that's where you can look to get information of what phase you're in, how you are doing compared to your opponent, and how much health and sync you both have. So as I mentioned before, AP, which is action points, is what allows you to make choices during the match if you want to draw a card on your turn, if you want to play a card face up, face down, and so on and so forth. Under that is the health of you and your team, and underneath that is sync. So sync is the thing I was talking about, where how much your companion likes you affects how the game can go. So, for example, Ed, our awesome protagonist down in the bottom left corner, has a really good bond with Wind. So whenever they reach a full points of 6 for them, they'll be able to gain a boost to all the cards they play. So instead of doing like 3 damage, they'll do 4 for the card. And they'll also gain a special card, a sync ability, which I'll explain when that pops up. So the opponent on that side played a red card, which is a weapon card. And there's 2 types of attacks. There's magic attacks and weapon attacks. And they're blocked by using the appropriate defense. So an armor defense for weapons and a magical block or magical barrier for magical defense. So now that we're a little closer, in the top left corner of each card, there's a combo number, and the number is 1 to 4. And what that does is if you have numbers that are next to each other, so 1, 2, 2, 3, 3, 4, you gain a bonus for playing those cards together. So at the minimum, if you play 2 cards that are next to each other numerically, you'll gain a boost to 1 for each card. And if you do a full combo of 4, each card gains 2 points each. And that's one of the ways that if you spend your points right, you can do extra damage with the cards you have in your deck. So the green card you played up there is a healing card. You can play it on your attack phase or your defense phase, and it'll heal up your health before the damage is dealt to you. So you can kind of use it as a defense. And the nice thing about it is you can also use it to boost your combo numbers. And as I mentioned before, the purple at the end is a discard circle. And that's because you have a hand size of 7. So if you want to continue drawing cards, you have to discard. But discarding is a free action, so you don't have to spend AP to discard. So he's played a 6 card, so he reaches 6 AP, and now the sync card has appeared. So now, while that card is in his area, he gains a boost to every card he plays, and he can also decide to play it to gain a free AP point back. So that brings it up, so he could play 7 cards in 1 turn, or you can save it for if you're on a defense phase and you thought you were going to knock out your opponent, but they just managed to have the right defense card to block you. So now you're out of points. So you could play that to defend yourself on their attack phase. And as you saw there, he decided to play a card, but then he drew another card and drew a card he wanted to play, so he was able to still play even though he drew. So in this turn, he decided to use a healing card as well as a attack card to build up his combo. And he decides against using the AP boost so he can keep the extra healing and damage that'll be dealt this turn. And that is our demo. So I wanted to thank you guys for coming and listening to our demo, and I hope you enjoy seeing the rest of the awesome teams that are going to be presenting today.
Thank you.
Hi, everybody. Welcome. This is the Bullet Monsters Vertical Slice update. Okay, so before we keep going forward, I just want to obviously present our team. If you guys remember, our team started with 2 people, and this is to what we've grown to. And I'd just like to say that I'm extremely happy with the team that we have right now. Okay, so before I show anything, I do want to recap what our game is about. The first part is our game is supposed to be dangerously fun. That is the tone that we're going for. When you play this game, we want you to have fun, but at the same time, kind of like be afraid of the choices that you made and how you're playing the game. As you know, as the name of the game implies, there's no bullets in this game. You're not shooting any actual bullets. You're shooting these animals called ammonites. And that is a very important mechanic because the whole idea is that once you shoot this animal, they have a mind of their own. So you can't really control them to, like, not directly at least. The story is that you are a redneck alien named Brick, and you're trying to join the Galactic Legion. The Galactic Legion isn't the nicest, they are not the nicest people out there, but neither is Brick, so that's good. The important thing is that he trains every day trying to get into the Galactic Legion. But because he is so not nice, he is not allowed to buy any guns or have any guns. So instead, he built his own cloning gun, and then he just shoves ammonites in there and shoots them out as a means to practice. So the game itself is a time attack based game where you're just going around shooting all these targets. So moving forward with our development, I do want to explain how our development has gone and how we have sent our development. The first part is, because this game is all about the ammonites, then we basically have to measure how we're making this game based on the ammonites. So here we are showing how we created the beaver ammonite that you guys have seen, and some of you have seen throughout this development, and all of its components and how long it took us to do every single component. Here I am displaying everything from any setbacks, mistakes that we may have made, errors, and it took us roughly 82 man-hours to make this beaver ammonite. Now, that doesn't mean that it's always going to take us 82 hours. In fact, we estimate that every new ammonite that we create is going to take us roughly 36 man-hours. One of the biggest things that you'll notice is that the quirk component is no longer there. Basically, because of the way that we've rebuilt quirks and ammonites, they're no longer married to each other. They're 2 separate things, so we can work on them separately. Meaning that if for some reason we decide that we don't want to make more quirks, or for some odd reason we decide that we're going to scrap them, it's not going to affect the production of the ammonites themselves. Not only that, most of the code is already done for the ammonites, so anytime we create new ammonites, it's going to be a much quicker process. As I mentioned, though, the quirks, because they're now a separate thing, they also have to be worked on separately. And this is roughly how long it would take us to create any new quirks from now on. But again, we do run into the same benefit as with the ammonites, meaning that because the quirks are their own separate thing, they don't depend on ammonites necessarily. So if we decide that we're happy with the amount of quirks we have and we don't want to keep adding any more quirks, we don't have to worry about it. But also we understand that that's not the only part to our game. It's not just the quirks and the ammonites. We have many other parts, and these are other considerations that we're taking into account when making this game. The marketing materials. We do understand that we are going to have to sell this game aside from just the game itself. So that includes posters, trailers, all that good stuff. We also have to finish the level. Today you guys are going to see like one big part of the level, like one part of the level, but that doesn't mean that the entire level is finished yet. Also, just the user experience and how we want our players to feel when they're playing the game, and any additional audio like music and voice lines. So because of that, we're looking at roughly this schedule. The way that we've decided to split the schedule up is in 4 different stages. Basically, here we're showing how long we think each stage is roughly going to get us. And obviously, we have what we're going to be doing in each stage. So in the regroup stage, we're going to be taking advantage of the fact that GDC is coming up, and half our team is not really going to be here, and we're just going to be cleaning up the project and getting it ready for the new content. The new content is obviously the most important one, where we're going to be adding all the new ammonites, all the new quirks that we need for the game. Then the cleanup, where we're going to be playtesting, polishing, and debugging. And then finally, doing the marketing materials like the website, trailer, and box art. You'll notice that if you were to count all the maximum weeks that we have here, those add up to 15 weeks. And the time that we have up until July, the end of July, is 19 weeks. So we are giving ourselves 4 weeks of buffer just in case any of these stages take longer than what we expect. But you guys didn't come here to look at all this math and all these charts. You came here for the actual game. So now we're going to be showing you the game. Spoiler alert, there is a guest voice actor. So hopefully you guys enjoy that and you can tell who it is. Let me just turn off the light.
Alright, enough gawking. Time to get back to work. The hell with shooting all three. I got me a better idea. Take that, you dried up glutton horse! I've been meaning to cut that tree down anyway.
Okay, so I noticed that you have an extra beaver there. You want to give that one a try? Okay, yeah, so basically here you guys are seeing the drunk ammonite, the drunk beaver, the drunk quirk. Basically wherever there's alcohol in the level, they will instead go for that and completely ignore what they're supposed to do. So here you guys are seeing a moonshine distillery, what's supposed to be a moonshine distillery. So, I mean, you want to shoot one more just to kind of show? So, I mean, obviously we're not going to get anywhere if he keeps doing that, so just switch back to the normal beaver.
Yeah, one of these days, Brick, you're gonna be right up there with the Galactic Legion.
Thank you.
All right, cool. Hey guys, I'm Adnan. Thanks for listening to us, and our game is The Logician, and we'll be talking to you about it today. All right, so I want to talk a little bit about the background of Logician and some of the story aspects. We've mentioned it before, but real quick, Logician came from RPP. It came from a second round RPP game, and we picked it up for Capstone. And we also went to a Tronicon at the very beginning of the semester, and we tested out the prototype with a bunch of young students. And they had a really good time with it. So when we saw their reaction to it, we knew for sure that we definitely had something in mind, something on our hands about it. So the basic story of the Logician is that the player is Nico, and he's on his uncle's farm. And Nico he's been trained to become a Logician. The Logician has these powers to kind of make the world become what they want it to be. The uncle one day says to Nico, "Do you want to take care of the farm while I travel for a little?" Nico says, "Absolutely sure." Unfortunately, that night a storm destroys the farm, and it's the player's job as Nico to rebuild that farm. Our real big goal with this game is to inspire an interest in programming. We want players to be invited into this world for it to be charming and sweet. We want them to enjoy themselves. And after they play the game, they learn some programming concepts, and if that's all they want, fine. As long as they had a good time, we're happy. But if the greatest hope and the greatest goal is that if they play it, they learn some of these concepts, they have a good time, and they're interested and inspired to learn more about it on their own in the future. I want to talk about some of the progression and some of the work we've done throughout this semester up until this point. So really early on, we are a smaller team of 9. We started experimenting with asset packs to kind of see what the world would look like. And at the very beginning, we had this kind of basic layout of the farm that was functional for our gameplay. It worked for the kind of tile system we were using to play the Logician. We iterated on some more, adding some more textures and trees and other assets to it. And this is a picture closer to the final product that we have today. So we've been working really hard to make sure the world is fun, charming, and inviting, and it doesn't look flat like and be disinviting to the player. We also did some work on the design where, really at first we were just going off really rough kind of ideas of what the game might look like, but we've been showing a lot of paper prototypes, and it's definitely something we're going to keep doing. The paper prototypes have been absolutely great in helping us kind of concept out these ideas and visualize them in a way that we hope is intuitive. It's been really helpful in helping us get our designs to a place that we know that they'll at the very least be in a real workable condition for sure. So that's what we're going to keep doing that going forward. I want to talk a little bit about the world of the Logician as well. There's a lot of fun things we have in the Logician, and I would say that everything in the world is a little robotic. We want this kind of robotic feel, but not quite the way people usually do it. We want the world, again, to be charming, to be inviting, and to be fun. So we try to stay away from things that look sterile or colorless or lifeless. These are some like the really early ideas and images we were trying to collect to see what the world might look like. We iterated some more on that. We had some concepts, and you can see some of those kind of cute aspects. Like this image right here is just a cow with a crank on the back, right? We have these different chickens here, and they have exhaust pipes for their crest. So we wanted stuff like that, where it was a chicken, it was cute, it was sweet. It just happened to have something weird about it. We iterated some more on the cow and the player, and these are some of the models that we have in game right now. So you can see the cow, it has a little crank on the back, as well as a plug socket for its nose. Looks totally normal at first as a ball cow. It looks totally normal as a ball cow at first sight, but then when you take a look at it, there's something a little different about it, and that's what we want. We want it to be fun, sweet, and just a little different. So at this point, I'll have Carson come up, and we'll play through the demo of the game. We're going to show some basic player gameplay, as well as some of the programming you can do with Kino, the helper on the farm, and we also want to show some of the progression that we can have on the farm and with the player. I guess put the volume down on the thing a little, yeah. All right, so right now Carson is just going to take a simple quest and plant some things on the farm. normally growing these crops will take a little longer, but for the game we have some debug codes and we're going to speed up the gameplay to get to more of the gameplay for the demo. Turn the volume down some more. Can you hear me? Is that good? Excellent. Okay, so Carson has a new quest he's going to pick up, try to get 3 strawberries this time. We'll have Kino, the help us out with this one this time. This is our programming interface. You can cycle the different bots if you like. You can see Kino here has some basic commands, but he doesn't actually have anything to help him farm on the plots and stuff like that. So we're going to equip him with some things to help him with that, give him some more prefab commands and conditionals. Alright, so Kino successfully planted some crops, but we want him to take care of them and keep watering them for us so we don't have to worry about it. Our code is a little sloppy last time, so we'll have a slightly more efficient code this time. Alright, so Kino clearly is watering the plants. We'll just go do something else on the farm while he's doing that. So we can get some candy, but we don't have any candy on the farm, but we do have an item called the hybridizer. It allows us to kind of combine things. We don't always know what we're going to get, but it might give us what we need. Alright, the hybridizer will take a day, so we'll go to sleep and kind of fast forward the game. Gotta make sure to shift the crops, you know? Alright, so some of these crops look like they're ready to harvest, so let's pick them up for the quest. All right, we got some rock candy. We did forget about Kino though. What is he doing? I think the strawberries are getting a little excited. Alright, you know what, let's just see what happens. Alright, well, that's not that expected. Okay, fine, we're good. Cool, we got a barn. There's one more thing we want to show you. We do want to show you the if statement, so we're going to have Kino do a particular if statement. I think we encountered a bug, so we can just, I guess go to sleep, but we'll show the if statement after. We do want to show you the if statement, so load it back up. What we're going to do here is we're going to keep watering the crop, and Kino will check when it's ready to harvest with the if statement. And if it's ready to harvest, he'll harvest it. If it's not, he'll just kind of keep moving up and down to let us know that it's not ready yet. Alright, Kino grabbed it. Good, thanks. Alright. Alright, so, a couple more things. We want to talk a little bit about the process going forward. We spent a lot of time collecting different kinds of metrics to make sure that we're more on target. We've among other things, we've collected hours worked versus estimates, times in meetings versus working hours, the best times for each of us to work due to our other obligations during FIEA. We're trying to get more and more accurate in our sprint planning, and we're hopefully trying to use this data to plan the path forward. If anyone wants to see this data, you're more than welcome to. Just come, message me or ask me. I'd be more than happy to share it with you. But for what I want to show for the future is just our general kind of idea and plan moving forward with the game. So we're talking with Lake Highland right now, and we'll be meeting next week to kind of hammer out a schedule for play testing. But at the end of every month, we hope to set up a play test where we will test certain features that we'll be incorporating before. We have our next programming command set up, but we do want to have our first playtest at the end of March to make sure that we're on the right path so far with where we're going. And if we're on the right path, we'll keep going. But if the students and if the programming instructors have some other ideas, we'll hopefully incorporate that with our design going forward. And so this is a really kind of high aspect picture of our plan going forward. With that, that's all I got for you guys. Thank you so much. Hope you guys have a great day.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the draft.
Lights. Hello, everyone. All right. Thanks, Jake. Hello, everyone. My name is Paul Nierenberg. I'm the lead designer for the draft. So, the draft, much better, the draft. So, the draft, like many great innovations, was born out of frustration.
A fellow gamer of mine, this man, Jacob Edelin, came to me and he said he had been playing Fire Emblem, and he had grown very frustrated with how there was a % hit chance in a game that was otherwise extremely strategic and extremely chess-like. And he said, if I could have just been in there, I could have made that shot. I don't want to rely on numbers. I don't want to rely on modifiers. I want to be in the game. So he pitched a simple idea to me. He said, what if you were a strategist? What if you could play in virtual reality as a strategist commanding out over a battlefield of your units, and then whenever those units came to conflict, you could actually step into their body and fight the battles yourself. No relying on numbers or systems. Victory or failure were completely in your hands. I said, sure, let's do it. And so the draft was born. And over the next 2 months, we tweaked and we twisted and we collected a team of brilliant, like-minded individuals, each of whom got to add an interesting idea, strategy, mechanic to the game, until we came to this beautiful fusion of the intellect of wartime tactics, the physical skill of gladiatorial combat, and the emotional passion of professional sports. It was something that was new, fun, and interesting. So I'd like to, first I'm going to explain the game, and then we're going to show you some gameplay. So the way the game works is in fact, it's a combat sport. It's broken up into 3 phases, a strategic phase, a battle phase, and a strike phase. You score 3 points for your team every time you successfully run one of your units into the enemy goal. And then you score an additional point every time you send an enemy unit flying into a penalty zone. We'll explain how you get there in a second. So in the first phase is the strategic phase. So you as the commander will be standing over a battle map, again in VR, that looks like this. In fact, this is our current battle map. And you will, from there, with your VR controllers, command your units, select them, and send them out into the battlefield to whatever positions they need to occupy, trying to get from your goal zone here to the enemy goal zone over here by one path or another, however you choose to get there. As soon as your units run into an enemy unit, you move to the battle phase, or the combat phase. You physically step into that unit's body and then fight a pitched one-on-one duel with the enemy unit. It's a simple fencing-style match where you can only strike the torso, 3 strikes, and whoever gets struck 3 times first is out. However, this is a sport, and it's not a blood sport. So what happens is that after you've struck the enemy unit 3 times, they enter a stun state. And then we enter the strike phase. Now, the strike phase is important. It's where the crux of the sport comes into play. When you have an enemy unit stunned in front of you, you get to line up a shot and send them flying into the air. Because in the draft, the player is not just the units, but the units are also the ball, which is why they have to physically run into the goal zone. And you can use the strike phase to either move enemy units away from your goal zone, move your own units forward, or send enemy units into the penalty zones, taking them out of the match briefly and scoring points for your team. So I'd like to show you what that looks like. So we are going to play a gameplay video now. I mean, yes, but not at this moment. So you can see this is the strategic phase, commanding units around the battlefield. Thank you. You can see Justin up there in his fencer stance trying to fight the enemy unit. And he's going to go in for a strike. Mind you, if you hit a wall, they will fall back and turn. And back out to the strategic phase, where he's commanding his unit forward. So obviously the physics are entertaining, but we are tweaking and tuning them consistently. And the enemy can now fight you. We've come a long way through a number of very challenging technical issues to get to a point where you can actually fight units. And they will actually play against you. The AI is smart enough that it did, in fact, beat Gorov once. So we're pretty proud of that. This is our striker unit right now. I wanted to point it out specifically because we promised someone in the audience very specifically that we would have a fully textured and modeled swords unit in the game. So I wanted to bring it out here so we could see it. The next thing I'm going to move into is a bit of a different video. This process has been an incredible journey for us as a team. It's been a lot of growth, a lot of learning around some very tight learning curves. So we've prepared a little video meeting the designers and the people on the team. We'd like to introduce you to them.
I am most proud of the work I did with the initial concept itself, actually. We started with something I could really appreciate, it was Fire Emblem in VR is what we started with. And that was a fine idea, but coming from there to where we are now was such an interesting process and took so much heart and soul on so many late nights. I'm really proud of where it's come to from there.
Probably the biggest challenge that we've had to face on the game is designing for a VR game. There are so many things that people don't consider when you give the player complete freedom over what they're doing. If I decide to stick my hand through this table, I can do that in VR. I can't do that in real life. And designing around that, it really forces you to kind of like bend your mind in ways you wouldn't think of doing.
The first-person sword fighting or melee combat in VR is really exciting. It's a challenge. At the same time, there's hardly really few games which does a good job of it, and I'm really excited to make our game really good in that area.
I always wanted to work in AI, and I never got the chance to work on gameplay and AI the way I've got to work on this project. It's been, I don't know how to say it, it's mixed feelings majorly. Sometimes it's exciting, sometimes it's scary.
As art lead, I very closely direct the visual style of this game, and we're using two different themes of futuristic solarpunk as well as romanticism. And it's been a very interesting battle to make sure that they stay consistent with each other.
Well, I've gotten to work with motion capture software, and that's been really great. I haven't been able to work with that before, so getting to learn all those systems is awesome. Yeah, so I've actually memorized, sort of by accident, not really on purpose, all of the places where the little markers go when you stick them onto an actor. And I didn't expect to learn it so quickly, but it turns out you only really need to do it once or twice before you kind of know where they all go.
Right now I'm working on the enemy player class for the swordsman. With this project I've been able to just straight up start working on characters, something I've always wanted to do. Anything sci-fi, the Halo in particular. I liked sci-fi movies, Starship Troopers. That's been a big inspiration for me.
It's pretty cool. I mean, we work hard, but we play hard too in the team. We have a lot of sword fights and stuff just going on, randomly popping up. We have team fitness time, which I take pride in starting. Yeah.
I kind of want to show everyone that we are working on challenges that the industry faces every day when it comes to VR.
I would really like to see this going on to Steam and becoming a good hit among the VR games out there.
I want my team to be able to create a beautiful game, not just a beautiful VR game, but a beautiful game in general.
I want our game to be the best game that FIEA has ever put out. And I believe that we can do that. I want it to be the most fun, I want it to be the best looking, and even if we don't hit those targets, I'm content just aiming for them and constantly working our butts off to get it there. Go draft!
So just a little bit more that I want to talk about before we let you go from this presentation. We have sort of an overhead view of our planning for the next few months, assuming we do get funded. There are new units that we want to add to the game a unit triangle to sort of balance out the strategy and make it more than just swordsmen running around. We have new levels that we've planned out and are really excited to make with unique new mechanics that we want to put in there. Clearly, the AI and some of the physics have a ways to go in terms of improvement and making them tight and robust and really worth playing against. But overall, I'm really excited about the trajectory we've plotted and the distance we've come so far, and I think that we really have something beautiful and entertaining and fun that we can show and be proud of by the end of August. I have one more video to show you. Thank you so much. Thank you very much, everyone. That's the draft.
crash your spaceship onto a mining installation on an alien planet. Everything's out to kill you. The robots left behind have turned hostile. You have no weapons. You have only what you to ride with and what's on the planet. So what do? The only thing you can do is survive. So that's the story of Master Key. So this theme of adapting to survive, and no matter what the danger, no matter how small the chance to survive, maybe you have 1% on this deadly hostile planet, you're going to do whatever it takes to survive. That's reckless bravery. So fortunately for our main character, Jalen, you crash, but someone's there to help you. This is our guide. So he saves your life, and he's going to set you on this path to escaping this planet you've crashed on. So this guide is a robot against these other robots because he wants to leave as well. There's dwindling supplies of energy, and eventually he knows, he's smart enough to know this, that we're going to run out of energy if I need to get out of here. So the guide helps you to repair your ship and get off the planet by the end of the game. And we want our story to be the beginning of a great friendship. So throughout this story is bonding between these two characters, Jalen, the main character that you're going to be playing, and the guide. And so this is practically an origin story for these two characters. So our gameplay revolves around a couple factors. The first being it's an FPS. So we need a weapon. And instead of having a weapon, we have a tool because that's all we came with. So we're using the tether gun. This would be a tool that Jalen is using outside in space while floating around her ship to pull objects closer. And so how it works is, demonstrated here on the right, is you can connect an enemy robot to a stationary object and pull that robot. You can also connect robots together to pull them together. And in the circumstance of an exploding barrel, you can connect that to the robot to then defeat the robot that you wouldn't normally be able to fight with just the tether gun. You can also connect a power source with an electric device. For example, maybe you can open an old doorway that's been unpowered or activate an elevator that's since shut down. And so this is a demonstration of how it's going to look in the game, just so when we get into the gameplay demonstration, you have an idea of what's going on. We also have movement as a big pivotal part of our game. We want to offer the player a lot of options of how they maneuver through our levels. So to do that, we added a wall run mechanic. So the character can jump on the wall and run on it for up to 2.5 seconds, and then either jump off as a sort of double jump, or they'll fall off naturally due to gravity. This is going to give us and the players a lot of opportunities to go from ground level to higher verticalities, maybe walkways or even on top of other buildings. And so these enemy robots that I mentioned earlier. So we're going to have 3 main types of enemies. The first being melee robots. They're going to get close up. They're going to start lunging at you. They're going to be trying to get up close and just sort of rip you apart or hit you with their tools that they use to mine. We're also going to have ranged enemies that will keep their distance, and they're going to use mining tools that they had. So in that instance, they have a spike gun that they would normally shoot the spike into rocks to break them up. Now they're going to be shooting it at you. And our last enemy is our flyer. So he's going to be at high altitudes and dropping objects onto you. For example, it could be a piece of debris to knock you down, or even an exploding barrel to kill you. So this is our mining installation. This is going to be our gameplay. And so in our demonstration, which we're about to show, we're going to be going through the crusher level into the cavern and then finally the cooling tower. We're also going to show at the end of the demonstration, in terms of art, the edge of the jungle. So you can look ahead to that, which we're going into the gameplay demonstration now. So this is the crusher level. In this level, there's a number of robots preventing you from going through the door at the other end, and currently it's locked. To clear out this room, you have to use whatever means necessary, and once the room has been cleared out, the door will unlock. So Joel's going to demonstrate how he would clear out this room. I'd also like to demonstrate at the bottom left is the health bar, stamina. For the demonstration purposes, we have it so the player cannot die, but if you see the health go down to 0, it's because we've been hit. Okay, and so we'll just move forward. So this is the cavern level we discussed. In this level, it's less about combat and more about using this maneuverability and problem-solving skills. So you can just jump up here. But unfortunately, this gap's much larger. You're going to need another way to get around. For this situation, we're going to use a ramp to pull ourselves forward. Oh, and he barely missed it. We have checkpoints to load. So we have a similar problem here. There's a gap, but unfortunately we can't pull something to jump off of. Fortunately, we can pull something to us to create a bridge. In this scenario, we have a broken pillar with some cracks at the bottom, and fortunately an exploding barrel. And so in this instance, we'll use the tether to create an elevator so that we can reach heights otherwise unreachable. And finally, we want to present the idea of powering something that used to be shut down, in this case, the elevator. This is our final level we'll be showing for the demonstration. This is our cooling tower. So if you can go in here and look up, you're going to see these columns coming out of the walls. These would be pistons ejecting steam in this cooling tower. So for the player, you have to progress to the top using that maneuverability we've discussed and now adding in timing as a factor. So if you want to demonstrate going through this. Oh. Yeah. Oh. And so that demonstrates the concept we want to get across with this level. We're not going to go through it all. We're going to go back to the presentation now. Okay, so before we go to the art stuff, I want to talk about moving forward. So we showcased 3 of those levels, the crusher to the cooling tower, and we have roughly 8 minutes of gameplay, depending on the player and if it's their first time or if it's repeat play. And so with that in mind, given what we were able to accomplish with our 16-man team, we believe that shooting for 20 minutes of gameplay for this entire game is pretty feasible, and it'll give us plenty of time to play test, get feedback. And so we're shooting for our alpha around June 27th, beta July 18th, and our final presentation will be August 4th. And I'm going to move into the art. So like most games, we began our process by just throwing as much stuff against the wall and seeing what sticks. For us, it was this idea that this mining installation in the top right should feel like a mining installation. What would be in this facility? What sort of objects should we be looking out for? Shipping containers, cranes, pipes. How do they build this area? We also had this tool that we needed to develop, this tether gun. Should it feel like a weapon or should it feel more like a tool? And finally, our enemies that we discussed. How should these robots feel? Should they be just big, hulking transformers or something smaller, something that fits with this mining facility? And so we went with this idea that this is a functional mining robot. This isn't just some robot that just plopped in the environment. On the left, we see a shovel. So this would be a tool used to dig. And on the right, the gun that I discussed earlier that shoots spikes into rock. Down here, we discussed what type of tool this should be. And so we took a lot of inspiration from real world as well as some imaginative sort of features. But it should function like a tool that this character has been using out in space. And finally, how's the installation look? This mining company, what's their goal? What do they have in mind when they're building these facilities? Keep it cheap, keep it fast. So it's not a lot of really unique buildings, but it should fit the theme that this mining company has been here and since left. And so we developed those into 3D models. So we have pieces of how we're constructing our buildings. We further developed into a 3D model our gun. Does it feel too big? Does it feel too small? Does it feel like a real tool that this character is using? And so we developed that further. And finally, 3D models for the enemies really helped us visualize how does it feel to stand next to them? Do they feel imposing? Do they capture the right tone of how we want to present our robots? And so we're going to jump into an art preview of our main sort of visual. But before we do that, I want to give you an idea of how we've progressed through our design. So this was the original gray box of the installation I showed you first. We've since progressed to this, which is we wanted to make it a lot tighter of an experience. Our original concept was way too open. The player is spending a lot of time just sort of walking around and not doing a lot of the fun stuff we really like jumping, moving on walls, using their tether gun to interact. So we narrowed down the scope and size of this area a lot. We also had thoughts like, how are we directing the player through this space? And we wanted to include stuff like lights and how we lay out. And so we had an artist draw over the space. So we added like a ramp to help draw the eye in and clearly indicate what the platform sitting there didn't. We also added, how's the lighting going to come in? How's the foliage? Does this feel like a mining installation that's been abandoned in this jungle alien planet? Does it feel like it's been overgrown enough? And how are we directing the player was the biggest thing. So we're going to jump into the art demonstration now. So this is our final art demonstration. We want the rest of our game to look like this. So we're directing the player with light through the critical path and adding those tileable pieces that were left over. We're also using the pipe on the right here, to direct the player, hopefully with a contrast jumping out with that bright yellow through the space, and that pipe would continue on, and then sort of give the player an idea of how we're moving out through this area. But like most players in games, people are going to play differently. So maybe you're very curious, maybe you like to explore, and so maybe you jump up over here on the left. We want that to be just as feasible of an option for our players as any other option in the game. So in this case, we're in this area with a robot, and so how you handle it is up to you. But I'm going to let the audio take over here, and Joel will play the space. A little bit louder. Cool. Cool. And with that, this is Master Key, and I thank everyone for coming out and listening in. So thanks.
So we're Project Polish Productions, and we're just a humble team of master's students trying to produce a game by August 4th. And what you saw there was some key clips from some of our gameplay we've been doing. And I would like to talk to you a little bit more about our game, starting with story, moving into mechanics, talking a little bit about scope, and being able to show you that gameplay as well as our visuals. So as you saw, our game is a 3D side-scrolling adventure. And I'm going to go ahead and start out with some of the story. So we take a lot of our inspiration from Greek mythology, and specifically the tale of Orpheus and Eurydice. And if you're not caught up to date on your Greek mythology, Orpheus was a son of Apollo, and he fell in love with Eurydice. And Eurydice died a very tragic death, and Orpheus was so distraught over this that he wasn't willing to leave her dead and wanted to bring her back from Hades. And that is kind of the inspiration for our game. Halia is our main character, and she's lost somebody that she desperately loves. And she's unwilling to let this lie, and is going to go to another realm where the gods are and try to convince them to bring back her loved one. So to do this, she has to complete trials that the god has set forth. And we will have 4 trials, and each of these will be separate levels within our game. And this realm itself is very fantastical and very whimsical and very different from our own. And during this time, she comes to this realm, and something interesting happens. Her spirit is pulled forth from her body, and this spirit is named as Oko. So together, they have to work together to get through each of the trials, and Oko is a representation of Halia's emotions during these trials. So you'll actually be controlling both of these characters at the same time on one controller. Halia is controlled via the left joystick with her movement, and her action button is on the left trigger. And Oko is controlled on the right joystick, and his action button is on the right trigger. So when I explain the mechanics, I'll be referring kind of back to this so you can get an understanding of how it works. On top of that, in each of the different trials, Oko takes on different states based on Halia's emotions. And with each of these states, Oko has different abilities and different properties. Along with that, the tether limits Oko's movement from Halia. On top of that, Oko and the tether change states, and sometimes it can be detrimental or positive for Halia. And they have to utilize these different properties to get through these trials. So now I'm kind of going to walk you through what each of those mechanics are. There's 4 of them, and then we'll go ahead and show you the gameplay of them. So the first one is what we call a reveal mechanic. It's the first state of Oko, and as you can see, there's a GIF, just to get a sense of what it looks like in-game, and then I'll go ahead and break it down for you. So what happens is when you hit the right trigger, Oko is pulled into Halia. And when this happens, there's a bubble that reveals things that you couldn't see previously. Halia is able to interact with these objects, and she can pull them forth from this bubble into the other world. And after a certain amount of time, Oko will be pushed forth back from Halia, popping back out. So it's a limited amount of time you can utilize this ability. Our next mechanic is what we call the explosion mechanic. And I'll let you watch the GIF. And so how this works is the tether functions as a fuse. There is a fire that is running down from Oko to Halia, and when it gets close enough, Halia can do 2 things. She can hit the left trigger, which blows out the fuse, causing no negative reactions, or she can let the fuse hit her, which will project her in the direction of Oko. Along with that, Oko has the ability to charge up, and he'll release that, propelling Halia away from him. Our next mechanic is the swap mechanic. Once again, I'll let you watch the GIF. So essentially how it works is you would hit the right trigger, and there's a short delay, and then the 2 will swap places. And once again, if you hit the button, it'll delay, and they'll swap, but each time you swap, the tether gets slightly shorter. So as we said, Oko is constrained by his movement based on this tether, so your maximum length decreases each time you utilize this ability. And it'll continue to a minimum distance, and once it's at this minimum distance, it will not decrease any further. On top of that, there will be glowing platforms, specifically in the gameplay, that if Halia stands on, will increase the tether back to its maximum length. And our last mechanic is the weight mechanic. So in the previous ones, Oko was able to fly around and move, and in this one, Oko has no movement of his own. He has to be carried by Halia. And so Halia is also limited by the tether in this state, as Oko cannot move himself, so she's restrained by Oko. So what she can do is she can disconnect herself from Oko for a temporary amount of time, and if you go past this time, it would be a lose condition, and she can jump and move regularly. On top of that, she can reconnect the tether when she gets within a certain range of Oko. Next, she can pick up Oko, and she can carry Oko around, which is how he moves. And with the right trigger, when held down, you start an aiming phase where you can aim Oko. And when you release the trigger, it throws Oko along this path. And she can once again reconnect with Oko. So kind of how we've structured our game is that we have not built necessary levels of our game, but rather gameplay and puzzles around these mechanics to see what we can do with them, to see what's the extent and how we can use these in different ways. So what you're going to be seeing is some of the better puzzles that we've created and condensed into a shortened version so that you can see some of the cool gameplay you can do with each of these mechanics. So we'll go ahead and show you that now. So down in this bottom corner is UI, just to help you understand what's going on. You'll be able to see timers down there as well as changes within the tether state. So first off, he's going to walk over towards the spell. And Oko can only change properties when he goes into the spell. So you can't freely swap between these mechanics. So he's going to go into it, and you'll see that it changes states. And the next thing we want to start out before we start this demo is you'll see this glowing box. This is a checkpoint. When he passes it, it will glow. And if he activates the trigger condition, both of them will respawn there. So this glowing box up here is a lose condition for Halia. So when he jumps up and touches it, he'll respawn. So just so if you see that during the game, that is what is happening. And several different things have different lose conditions. Sometimes it's a lose condition if Oko touches it. Sometimes it's a lose condition if Halia touches it. Charlie will showcase that before moving on with the rest of the gameplay. So now we'll go ahead and let him play through some of it so you can see this. So that's our mechanical showcase, and just so you're aware, we've created around 20 minutes of gameplay, and we obviously couldn't show you it all here. So if you want to, you can go to this link and you can see the rest of our gameplay. It's also underneath of the YouTube in the YouTube description if you're interested. So I'm going to talk a little bit about scope. So overall, in the past amount of time we've had, we've created 51 assets, fully modeled, textured, game ready. And that took us around 109 hours. For characters, we have one that is complete, it's game ready, and the other one that is modeled. That was around 62 hours. We have 5 animations for Halia and 1 for Oko. That took us about 36 hours. For level design, we have about 20.5 minutes of gameplay, and that was around 50 puzzles, 50 different puzzles. And that took us 124 hours. So, based on this, and knowing that we have to be done by August 4th, here's what we can accomplish. We can do about 204 environment assets completed from starting from nothing, getting to game ready. We can do about 6 characters. This doesn't include Halia, but does include the one that's not complete. We can do around 77 animations. This is split between bipedal, such as Halia and the other characters, as well as Oko. And we can do around 20 minutes of overall gameplay. So that'd be, our game would be around 20 minutes in length. And so now I want to talk a little bit about our level creation process and how we plan on tackling it going forward. So we're going to start with taking these mechanical puzzles that we have and putting them in front of people and seeing which ones are hard and which ones are easy and which ones do people like and which ones don't they. And we're going to allow that to inform the way that we gray box our level and the way that we position those puzzles and how we pace it. After we have the gray box done, We're then going to test the gray box, looking at our pacing and other elements. And after that, we're going to create our second pass at the gray box level. Then our assets are going to be due, and we're going to put those assets into the game. And that's going to be, the level is going to be due about that time. And then we want to do another testing to make sure that with our assets and any of our story elements are all reading well with the mechanics. And our level would be complete on the 19th of April. And that is just one level, and we've decided to work on the swap mechanic first. And so we're going to follow this process for all of our levels. And as you can see, there's overlapping between when we start one level and we do the next one. And we should be finished by around July 12th, giving us around 2 sprints, 4 weeks worth of extra time. So now we're going to show you the aesthetic standard. We're really excited to show you all of this. My team's been working incredibly hard on this. And everything you will see is stuff that has been produced by our team, including the music and the sound effects, the art, the particle effects, animations, everything. So we'll show you that. So that's what we have to show you. Thanks.